All right, so we are going to be installing hub pulley, hub, doing the valve lash, torque converter, and hopefully putting the motor in. So, I mean, there's not much else to it. So we'll put the oil filter on before putting the engine in. But besides that, I'm not going to put any fluids in it because it's just going to be added weight. It's going to be more of a pain to manhandle the engine around because we're going to have to try and shift it a bit in order to get it to line up with the factory bolt holes. So let's get to it. All right, so we have Woodruff key, and there's a nice little spot there on the crank. And then I'm just going to take engine oil and just kind of coat the seal and the hub itself. Spun the crank at a pretty good pace. Let me use the.
You can try to lock up the back here.
Nah, it didn't really do much.
You want to lock up the flywheel with something?
Yeah.
Slip a wheel.
So anybody that's working on these motors, really nice resource for finding information on torque specs and guides and stuff is SHBox.
Please.
So we turn the engine over to top dead center. We set the valve lash to a half turn. So you hand tighten it down. Once this bottoms out, half turn, and then lock in the whole, put the wrench on, and then put the Allen key on, and then lock the insert in. So next step is to just cycle through the firing order and go through another 15 of these. So, and then because the key sticks out a little bit, I'm hoping that the valve covers will still clear. If not, I might end up just taking them out to the inside of them in order to beat the clearance into them. So, because I'm going to do everything in my power not to use those Canton valve covers. So we went through, did the valve lash, Ended up having to modify the inside of this a little bit. If you look at the baffle, I had to kind of squeeze it a little bit in order for it to get in between those two rockers, that gap there. So even now, so it just popped on now, but there's a little hang up, but then once it gets past, there's nothing contacting the inside. So it's once it gets past those rockers, it seems like it's fine. We're gonna end up putting the gaskets on both valve covers and then cycling the engine and seeing if we hear anything tap the metal. All right, so we're ready to install the torque converter. I poured fluid in here and kind of like burped it. So some's gonna leak out when I go to tip it and put it in, but hopefully I can slide it on the transmission shaft fast enough that I don't lose a ton of it. And then afterwards, you're just gonna end up filling it through the dipstick tube. So that's the next step. And then should be good to install the motor. So we'll probably end up doing the valve cover bolts last. So hopefully they'll turn up. So, and I gotta put the steam pipe on as well. Step down.
Yeah. So much room for activity.
I know.
Big boy.
One.
Oh.
Two.
Hey. Nice.
Only dripped a little bit.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad, not bad, not bad.
So. Torque converter's in. So when you're putting the torque converter in, you'll have the initial slides in, you'll hear a click. You kind of rotate it back and forth a little bit. As you're pushing forward, you'll hear it click again, and then you keep doing that a little bit, maybe rotate it a little bit more, and then you'll hear it click in one more final time. So three like click, little clunking noises, and that lets you know that it's seated in the transmission. So not sure if camera's gonna pick up. There's a little bit of fluid that leaked out there by the rag. Not too much. So I was worried that I was gonna end up making more of a mess. So filled that torque converter just to the right spot, because any more would have just leaked out onto the floor. So, all right. Likely do the steam lines. I got a whole bag of grommet / gasket, little washers. So it's not the factory OEM ones. The factory OEM ones, it's $12 per seal, and you need 4 seals. So you're telling me $50 just for brand new seals, versus this was $20 for an entire baggie full of them. So the main thing is it has to seal on this surface, and it has to seal underneath the head of the banjo bolts here. So as long as it does that, you're good. This actually still has one of the seals on it. So this one it's missing. So I figure I could probably reuse them, but like this one's torn. Probably could reuse them, but they're on the back of the engine. I don't want to put this back in there and then have them leak and have to crawl back in the truck in order to replace them. So I'd rather just replace them now and seal everything and be done with it. All right, so we have the steam line on, gaskets, grommets, all the sensors are transferred over. We have the engine off the engine stand. So next step is to put it in the truck. So I have 5 out of the 6 transmission bolts. The one snapped, so I'm gonna have to replace that. So we're gonna put 4 of them in, take the 5th one, run to the hardware store, get something that matches. But other than that, we have all the bolts and fasteners. So the main issue is gonna be getting it to line up on the engine mounts and line up with the transmission and everything. So it's gonna be kind of a process of putting it in and maneuvering it so that it sits in properly. So the other thing we probably should do is unbolt the engine mounts off the cross member, since the one side is lower than the other side. So we'll end up doing that, and then hopefully engine will go in nice and smoothly. I've never put an engine in with the exhaust manifold still, or with the headers still in it. So we'll see how much of a pain this is going to be. All right, so at this point, the battery died on the GoPro. We ended up struggling a bit more with lining everything up. The flywheel on the back did not necessarily want to line back up with the torque converter nicely, so struggled with that a bit, as well as trying to figure out a way to get the engine mounts to kind of sit level. And I'm not sure why the transmission is bolted. We didn't unbolt the transmission at all. The transmission is bolted to the cross member completely flat, and so that was kind of our aligning point for the engine. So the fact is, the engine does not necessarily sit in there 100% level, at least according to the cross members. So I'm not sure if that's due to the engine mounts that I'm using, which are from the Buick Roadmaster that the engine was pulled out of, as well as a little bit of combination with the original factory mounts for the truck. So what I ended up doing prior, when I first installed the engine, is drilling a couple new holes on the driver's side in order to mount the engine mount. I was able to get the passenger side to line up originally and did not have to drill anything. It perfectly lined up. I'm not sure why the driver's side for some reason was off by like an inch. So there wasn't a hole, like it's not like I could like kind of pry it a little bit and like force a bolt through. It was off by an inch on the plate. So by looking at it now, I'm not sure if it's just me looking at the engine for a long period of time that it looks like it's not level, but it is where it is. It's not obscene. It's not like it's a slant 6 and it's sitting there completely crooked, but the engine is now back in. It is up and running. Didn't really miss anything. Hooking the headers back up, radiator hoses, flushing the coolant, kind of basic stuff there, and fired the truck back up. So didn't have any leaks and still don't have any leaks. So hopefully it's good. but gonna try and be more prompt with doing content and recording stuff. I have a project in the works right now with the truck that should be interesting. So I'm not gonna say anything until it's done. So it might be like a 1-2 video mini series in order to explain and demonstrate how I'm going to do what I'm going to do with the truck. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate everybody that is following, hitting that like and subscribe button if you enjoy. I'm going to try to give more detailed information on the process of doing this engine swap. It's first that I've done. It's first a lot of my friends have been a part of, and it's a learning, process for everybody. So all the little quirks and issues that I've come across, I've been answering questions and stuff like that in the comments. If I don't answer them in the comments on the YouTube video, if I somehow miss them, you can follow my social media and just DM me on there and hit me up about any technical questions. I've been pretty good with being able to get you guys information on what I used, where I got stuff, and any other issues that I might not have mentioned that you're currently running into on your project. So till then, see ya.